Welcome to Lake Como, where I currently am residing on a little pontoon. And so I'm been taken here by my beautiful girlfriend for my birthday, and we've spent a few days here. And as always, when I'm able to get out of the office, it gives me a little bit of time to think. And so this week in my newsletter, I wrote about 28 lessons that I've learned in my 28 years on this planet. And so I thought I would pull together a little video on this crazy doc to share them with you. So if you're watching me for the first time, my name is Elliott I run a digital growth agency based out of London. We should do about 1.1 million this year, team of 12. And yeah, we spend loads of money on paid advertising. That's what we do. And so these are some of the lessons I've learned about business and life in the 4 years that I've had my agency now, and also the 28 years that I've been alive on this planet. So without further ado, let's get in. Lesson number 1. He who dares wins. Having the confidence to act and fail is 99% of success. And so he who dares wins, obviously the old SAS adage, which I had my Call of Duty days when I was growing up to thank for my knowledge around the Special Forces. And I love that phrase because it's just so true. Like, actually just having the confidence in yourself to take the plunge, take the action. In my case, it was quit the job and start the business, and know that, you know, it might not work and that's okay, but just have the confidence to act anyway. Because what I have been able to observe throughout my various mentors and the successful people that I've met in my career as well, people who are hyper successful, they just ruthlessly do stuff. Like, they just take action on everything. And another thing I've noticed in a lot of people that I've met that are not quite where they want to be is that they put things off. They're always waiting for a perfect time, waiting for the stars to align, just procrastinating or trying to get something perfect rather than just actually say, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to push this, I'm going to send it out. And, you know, in the marketing world, when it comes to, you know, we send a lot of emails, for example, and you have a little phrase, a good email is always going to outperform a perfect email that never gets sent. And so sometimes you've got to take action. Lesson 2 is if you don't ask, you don't get. And so this is a classic phrase, and I've been reminded of this all the time. Like, you never know what will happen if you don't ask. And so many of the things in life that we want are just on the other side of asking. I've had it multiple times where, you know, maybe I'm needing something from a client and I was a bit scared to ask. And then you ask and it's like, absolutely. And you end up getting some doors opened or some additional work. Well, because you just asked. And I mean, you know, we see it when... What's a good example of you don't ask, you don't get? A recent example. The restaurant last night, fully booked, you asked for the terrace. So another little example, we went to a restaurant last night and it was very busy. We only booked it about 3 weeks ago. And Helena, my girlfriend, asked, she was like, please, can we have, you know, one of the tables on the terrace? And they said, sorry, they're normally booked up really far in advance, probably nothing we can do. But yeah, we'll try. We turned up yesterday, and because she had asked, we had managed to get upgraded and got a little table on the terrace. So you don't ask, you don't get. Number 3, you make your life a lot easier or harder based on the customers which you choose to serve. So again, when it comes to running a business, I know a lot of people, you kind of fall into a business, much like me. Like, I worked in an agency running ads, therefore I left and started a business running ads. Like, it's just a natural thing. I didn't have some grand plan to start an advertising agency. And so I know a lot of people go down that route, but one of the, I wouldn't say strokes of genius, that's far too extreme. But one of the things we got right is that we knew we wanted to work with businesses that were already kind of well established and had a good amount of funds for the advertising, because the nature of what we do, you need a lot of money. And so by the very nature of them being relatively big businesses, they tend to, not all, but they tend to be very good clients because they can afford our services. You know, we charge fairly high prices, and it just, life is all easier. Now, on the flip side, you can make your life much harder if you choose to serve customers that either are extremely skeptical, either they don't have much money, and all these other classic barriers to entry that would appear before they could buy your product. And so sometimes building a business or pivoting your product service line around a pool of customers that just would be so happy to buy and have loads of money and can just afford what you want can just make life a lot easier. We see this with all of our clients that we run advertising to as well. It's often the customers that sell to really affluent audiences that you have the most success with. Because if you're marketing to people with loads of money, it's much easier to get them to buy. Okay, number 4, everything you want in life is on the other side of a few tough conversations. So I've learned this a lot in the last couple of years, because when I left my agency, I was really good at doing what I did, but I was still quite young and I never really managed people. So starting a business and building a team, we've got 12 or so people now, learning to manage them was a whole new skill set for me. And one of the things you have to do when you lead a business is you have to have tough conversations with people. You have to let them know what they're doing well and what they're doing not so well and how they can improve it. And ultimately, when some people might need to leave because they're not the right fit or whatever it is, you need to have those conversations, and they're very tough. And actually, I've certainly had it where I've delayed tough conversations out of fear and just exacerbated the problem and let it run on for much longer. When in reality, the situation for both me and the person involved would have just been alleviated way sooner had we just been more willing to have the tough conversation. And so, don't shy away from tough conversations. Get used to having them. It's a very important skill. Number 5, the world is not a miss of opportunities, only our ability to see them. So I remember I was journaling in bed one night, and this little phrase sprung to my mind, and I wrote it down. And I think it's so true. Like, in the world, there are just a complete abundance of opportunities all the time. The only thing that's missing is actually our ability to spot them and identify them. So this ties into lesson number 6, which is the harder you work, the luckier you get. You hear that phrase a lot. Now, I believe that's not because there's more luck, but instead because you are better equipped with more knowledge, skills, and resources to identify and take advantage of luck. So the harder you work, the more you develop, you establish better skills, better knowledge, better resources, and therefore when these opportunities present themselves, you can actually capitalize on them. So like an example would be, I'm here in Lake Como. There's all these crazy properties around here. Now, I could drive past the street one day and there'd be an old abandoned house. And if I know nothing about the property market, to me, that doesn't seem like an opportunity. It looks like a derelict house. Whereas someone who actually knows the area, understands property, could see that, and they could identify it as a potential hotspot, go buy it, they understand the finance system, can get the funding for it, secure the house, and then they have all the stuff they need to renovate it and stick it on Airbnb and start making loads of money from it. Now, they can only do that because they've worked hard in that particular trade, and they have developed the knowledge and the skills and ultimately the resources to identify that opportunity and capitalize on it. And so it feels like the harder you work, the luckier you get, not because there's more luck, but because you are more able and equipped to identify what that luck is, what those opportunities are, and then actually do something with them. Number 7, so drive revenue first, brand second. Then go all in on brand because it will drive the most revenue in the long term. So again, I used to be die-hard performance marketer, so it's just revenue. Never really used to believe in brand advertising. I've done a big pivot on that really in the last 12 months because I recognize now, as a business, especially in the early stages, it's critically important that you establish marketing that's going to generate you sales. And for us in our business, our whole proposition is you give us £1, we'll give you 2, 3, 4, £10 back. So we are just brutally focused on revenue. However, once you've got revenue coming in, and that should always be the first priority because otherwise your business will just die, then you want to focus on building brand. Because brand being the association that people have between your business and certain positive emotions, and the better you can build that in the long term, that will generate significantly more revenue than your typical revenue driving channels are. Because what I mean by this is, with paid advertising as an example, it's very linear growth. So the more revenue you want from it, the more you have to spend. And over time, it gets slightly less efficient than at low levels as well, for a whole bunch of reasons. Whereas with brand, this is a thing that quietly compounds over time. And if you're able to slowly build these positive associations between your business and these very positive emotions that people want, over time, it just catches fire. And it can end up being an extremely, extremely profitable endeavor. And that's our plan anyway. We're just beginning to make very early moves in the world of brand, and I recognize that actually in the long term it should be a big driver for us. Number 8, your environment is one of the biggest impacting factors on your productivity. This is so true. Like, actually working in a place where it's quiet, you have a good setup, you have really good Wi-Fi, you have like a mouse and a keyboard. It sounds stupid, but it makes the world of difference. I've always been one to invest in the latest Apple products, technology, brand new laptops, purely because I know I'm going to be chained to my computer for like the vast majority of the day. And so I want to make sure I enjoy that. And actually, if I enjoy it, then I'm going to work harder and do way more on it. I get a little bit frustrated when I see people working on really old computers and trying to run a business off like a really ancient machine that's like super slow. It's like you're just handicapping yourself before you even started. And so actually investing in the right equipment and the right environment that you can sit in, that you go and you lock in and you just feel productive, is like the ultimate productivity hack. If you hate where you work or you don't look forward to going there, if it's distracting, then I, for one, would just put it off and do way less work. Number 9, it's a useful habit to ask yourself regularly, does this choice build me up or diminish me? So this is a little bit of a life principle that when I'm faced with various decisions or temptations, alcohol's a good one. So I used to drink an awful lot, grew up in the typical UK drinking culture, and over the last few years I've really have lowered how much I drink. And like one of the frames I would ask if I was getting tempted to go on a big night out and go and sink 10 pints in the pub was actually, does this choice to go and do this build me up or does it diminish me? And when I phrase that question to myself, the answer becomes very clear. Like, things like that would diminish me. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to choose the things that are going to build me up. And if you do that enough over the long run, it's helpful to reinforce positive habits. And I find it's just quite a helpful question to ask when you feel like you're lapsing into old ways, old temptations. Number 10, being useful means you attract money. The more useful you can be, the more money you would generate. The whole principles of business is that you solve a problem. And in exchange for solving that problem, you get paid. And so either the more problems you can solve, the more you'll make, or the bigger problems you solve, the more money you'll make. And it just ties down to being useful. And so like how my business began and certainly how it's evolved started off because I realized I had a skill that was very useful to people. Paid advertising, actually running it profitably, because most businesses out there are very bad when it comes to running advertising. And so I figured I could be useful. And when I started my business, it was right during the thick of the COVID pandemic, where people needed to invest in things that they knew were going to drive them actual results immediately, because it was so uncertain they couldn't risk not. And so we started being useful. But then we only did paid ads at the start, and I realized, if I'm running these paid ads to a landing page, then if the landing page isn't very good, it doesn't matter how good my ads are, because the people aren't going to convert. So I thought, you know what? This is an area I could be useful. I can actually just design and build the landing pages for them. That way they don't have to go and get some outsourcer to do it or some web agency which is going to cost loads. I can just be useful and do it. And that's how our business has evolved to the point where we now do a lot of the lead follow-up as well. And even now going as far as hiring setters and closers to literally field a sales calls for our clients so we can be more useful. And every step when we've added something like that, where we have become more useful and acquired new skills within the business, we've been able to increase our prices, we've generated more revenue and ultimately more profit as well. So the correlation between how useful you can be and the money you make is very strong. Number 11, it's okay to think about it. None of my best decisions were emotional. All of my worst decisions were emotional. This is very true. And I actually went on a leadership program about a year and a half ago now. And this was one of the topics. They had a whole section about having tough conversations with team members and how sometimes you're going to have conversations where you're going to feel emotional. You might feel angry, disappointed, upset, frustrated. And it's in those moments that you need to know it's okay to say, right, let's park this conversation for now. I hear you. Let's go away. Let's think about it and let's come back to it. Because when you're in the heat of the moment, if you or someone you're speaking to is emotionally charged, the likelihood of you getting the best outcome just drops significantly. And all of the worst decisions I've ever made in my business have been like emotional decisions, without a shadow of a doubt. Whereas all of my best decisions have been thoroughly well thought through, normally discussed with other people as well, and normally with 1 or 2 sleeps in there to really solidify and consolidate my thoughts on it. So like, it's okay to take your time. You don't have to have the answers all the time, and it's absolutely okay to think about things. Yeah, lesson number 12. So just being positive and enthusiastic alone can open doors and opportunities for you. Big believer in this. I've always naturally been quite a positive, enthusiastic, charismatic guy, and especially because I actually really enjoy the work that I do. So when I speak about it either to prospects or to clients, my natural enthusiasm I think kind of shines through, and it's been the one thing that I've been repeatedly complimented on in truth throughout my whole career. People enjoy my energy, they enjoy my enthusiasm, and as a result it's resulted in lots of really positive relationships, obviously lots of new business, and also lots of referrals, and just I found very good things have come from it. Because personally, I find the world of business can be awash with people who don't really enjoy what they do, and that really shines through in how they speak and how they carry themselves. And I think a lot of the business world just can be very boring. And so being someone who genuinely is excited to talk about the stuff that you do and has real authentic positivity and enthusiasm is just a very infectious thing. And I think generally you'll find people will be attracted to that. Now, not everyone's going to love it. Don't get me wrong. Some people might dislike it. But generally, it's a good radar, certainly for me, because if someone doesn't like my energy and my enthusiasm, then obviously a business relationship between us is not going to work out. So it's quite a useful filtering mechanism as well. Number 13, it's cruel to withhold constructive feedback from people you care about. Challenge them directly and with care. So this is so true, and in my business and in my experience, I've been very bad at giving feedback. In truth, early on, I worked with my best friend was my first ever employee, and then another friend that I met from uni came on as number 2, and then my sister, and so on and so forth. So we've had a lot of people on the team that I've just been very close with from a personal level. And whilst that's amazing and has a ton of fantastic benefits, one of the challenges is it's kind of awkward to give feedback to your best friend when you're working together, especially when it's tough feedback. And so natural inclination is to push it down the line and leave it. But what I've also learned is that's just absolutely the worst thing you can do. And feedback is such a critical tool, constructive feedback that is. Because at the end of the day, anyone in a role wants to get better. And if they don't, then they shouldn't be there, period. But in order to get better, people have got to receive feedback. And if you're a leader in a business or a manager, it is your role to give that feedback and present it in a way that is direct, to the point, and very fair as well, and do it with care, not taking the mick, not being harsh, not letting it bubble into frustration, but give them the very clear, direct feedback that they need to grow, because otherwise you're not fulfilling your role as a leader, as a manager, and you're ultimately letting them down and you're inhibiting their growth. And so actually it's very selfish to hold that back. And so it's a bit of a learning curve. It certainly was for me anyway. But the more feedback you can give, the better. Number 14, how you present something is more important than the thing itself. A small bit of design or framing can add thousands in perceived value. This is just so true. So literally how you might present a piece of work to a client. The email, the words, whether it's a presentation or a report, how it's designed can literally impact how they perceive it so much. And an example of this is if you imagine sending someone a scrolly handwritten note versus a beautifully designed PDF report. Could have the exact same information in, but if it looks like it's been written by a 3-year-old, then the perceived value of the information kind of decreases. And so actually learning that you can really enhance the value of the stuff you produce simply by making it look nice is just a real little hack in life. And that's why I've always wanted to invest heavily in our creative team, take pride in our brand and really how we present things. And in this day and age of Canva and other AI tools, there's zero excuse to not have things looking awesome, and it can really add so much value to what you're doing. Number 15, the only difference between you and hyper successful people is just specific information that they have applied. Because again, you get a lot of people, certainly around my age, who are doing all sorts of crazy stuff. They're working really hard, they've got all these grand ideas, and they're putting in the time and effort. And it's interesting to think that actually the difference between them and someone who is 10, 20 times more successful was just that successful person had some specific information that you didn't have. And not only did they have it, but they actually applied it. So this is why I'm big into searching out these people, finding out that information, and then implementing it myself. A no to someone else is a yes to yourself and your goals. So I totally swiped this from either Alex or Layla Hormozi recently, as they always talk about entering these seasons of no. And I am a bit of a people pleaser, by nature. And so, another lesson I had was always say yes to things and figure out how you can do it, if it's going to be constructive. And so I naturally would say yes and jump at, lots and lots of opportunities. However, as we've grown and my calendar time has grown increasingly scarce, I realized that this is a very unconstructive way to live, and that actually I need to be bolder with saying no to things, because if I say no to someone else, then I'm indirectly saying yes to myself and ultimately my goals. pending I'm going to spend that time working on those goals. So like actually having that reframe, because sometimes, especially British people are so polite, have a natural inclination to say yes to everything. But it's okay to say no, because actually you're saying yes to yourself. Number 17, proactively plan to do more of the things that you know you'll never regret. So for me, this is things like journaling, meditating, going in the cold plunge, going to bed really early. Like I go to bed at 9 o'clock every night. And the reason I do this is not because I just love it and get really excited by it. Like, no, I really don't get excited by any of those things. However, I know when I do them that I do feel good afterwards. And I certainly know I never, ever regret them. Whereas it's a lot of the fleeting pleasures in life, you know, the quick little pint after work, or the tasty junk food meal, or hopping onto Fortnite with the boys to get a few dubs in the evening. Like, that is like short-term pleasure, but ultimately, I nearly always regret those things afterwards. Not always, but a lot of the time I do. Whereas constructive things that maybe don't get me super excited to do them, but I know I'm never going to regret them, that's what I try and fill my calendar with. Number 18, be okay with asking for help. You're not meant to have all the answers. So this is very interesting, because I have learned that certainly when you start a business and you have some degree of success, your ego can grow very quickly and you can kind of feel a bit invincible and like you are God's gift to man in many ways, and you know, you're on a bit of a streak of success. And you can build this kind of false inflated ego that can make you not want to ask for help, because now you might internalize that you've felt some degree of success and feel like other people look at you like you are successful, and therefore you almost stop asking for help because you don't want to be seen to need help. When in actual fact, that is the quickest way to slow your growth. And I invest heavily in going to masterminds and with other mentors, and actually just spend that time reaching out to other people that I know have achieved really cool things, so I can sit down with them and speak with them and learn from them and really get their opinion on like the challenges I'm facing. Because I, for one, know when I'm in my business, in my bubble, you know, I have a very shrouded perspective on what might be happening at any one time. And sometimes it's incredibly hard to see the right path, especially when you don't know all these other potential paths even exist, because how could you? You've never experienced them. And so I actually like being completely okay and very willing to go and ask other people for help. Honestly, has served me so well. And like every single one of our big breakthroughs over the last 4 years has directly come really from me getting help from someone, rather than me having some amazing original idea myself. Number 19, someone out there has probably achieved everything you want to, so seek them out and find out how they did it. Again, the ultimate hack. You know, we live in an age where we can just buy knowledge and experience from other people and then apply it ourselves. This is the whole nature of humanity and how we have managed to progress as a civilization ever since the ancient Egyptians first made papyrus back in the day, and we could actually record information. All of a sudden, our level of innovation and progress just went through the roof, because now generations aren't just making the same mistakes. They're able to learn from past generations and skip all of that trial and error. And that is the same in business. Like, there's literally, unless you're, an Elon Musk crazy innovative type, I run an agency. There's loads of agencies out there. Like, loads of people have built very big successful agencies. So like, I don't need to try and reinvent the wheel completely myself. I can go and find out how they did it, swipe their learnings, their pains, their hardships, and the lessons they got from it, and then implement it myself. Of course, with my own little twist, and add my own little bits of innovation on top. But ultimately, it's such a hack to progress in life. Number 20. The extra minutes snuggling in bed or chatting with your partner in the morning have a tremendous return on investment. Don't neglect them. Now, I also think this is very true, especially when you're in a business. It's very taxing, both mentally, physically, but also on your personal relationships as well. It's in the early days where things are very scrappy and the demands on you are very intense. One of the first things that goes is your free time, and then how you feel in your free time, because you're battling with all this stress. And so it's often easy to deprioritize little moments where maybe you're with your partner, that little chat in the morning. We're actually carving out time to really focus on you and them and the relationship, because there's a million other things and a million other things on fire that you want to sort out. But ultimately, you got to not forget the whole reason why you're running this business in the first place. It's probably so that you can live a better life, and that better life normally involves your partner and the things you want to do. And so making sure you protect those fragile little moments, which can seem very small, on a particular day, but actually over the long run can make a tremendous impact, because at the end of the day, you're in this together and you want it to work. And so you don't want to completely self-sabotage at the demands of your business. So for me, those few little minutes in the morning where it would be easy to be like, right, gotta get up, gotta get stuff done, are actually very important. And so I always carve out time for them. 21, spend time thinking about what you want and do this regularly because it will change, and that's okay. So I really, really struggled with the whole concept of like creating a 10-year vision and all this stuff when I first started my business, because I couldn't even see like 3-6 months ahead, let alone 10 years. So what the hell is that business going to look like? And so I've learned over time that actually it's okay to not have a super clear vision. However, what's not okay is to have like a relatively clear picture of where you do want to go, because ultimately, again, your business is a vessel to create the life that you want. And so you need to have an understanding of what that life is in order for you to build a business that can get you there. Otherwise, you're just going to be doing works for work's sake, and actually making decisions will become quite difficult, because you won't know, is this going to help me achieve this goal faster or not? And so I sit down now and I try and think about this quite regularly, because certainly for me, every 90 days, my life plan looks vastly different, and that's okay. Like, you learn new stuff, you experience new things, you want new things. But certainly having an idea of where you want to go, because sometimes if you figure out what it is you really want, you actually have the harsh reality that, okay, well, maybe this thing I'm building isn't the best path for me to get there, and that's okay too. But it's when you just get on the hamster wheel, it's when you run a business, geez, there's just so much stuff to do. You just invite a never-ending workload into your life. Unless you have some kind of ambition, goal that you want to get to, then it just becomes kind of work for work's sake. And that becomes a very, not a very fun or fulfilling life. So think about it, but it's okay that it's going to change. It's going to change a lot, and that's fine. 22, invest heavily and willingly in the things that upgrade the quality of your life. So for me, this is like technology, food, sleep, home comforts, gym, mentors, knowledge, all that kind of stuff. Again, like, life is here to be lived and it is here to be enjoyed. And so if there's anything that I interact with on a daily or weekly basis, I want to invest in a very good version of it. My phone, my MacBook, my flat where I live, like the food that I eat, I spend a lot of money on very nice cuts of steak, for example, because I recognize that it's a very important part of my life and I don't want to skimp out on it, and I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor and ultimately make a life that's worth living. Because whilst I agree you need discipline, and there were times where I wasn't able to afford all of this kind of stuff as well, and like, you have to grind through it. Ultimately, when you can, it makes the grind a lot easier, because in the long run, discipline is fantastic. But if you can make it a little bit more enjoyable for yourself through a few relatively small investments, then for me, that's absolutely worthwhile in doing. 23, make content. If you have a decent following of the right people, it's unreasonable for your business to not succeed. So I am very much learning this now, hence this video. And I've been very neglectful of content in the last 4 years, whereas now we are really trying to increase this and put this out, because I totally recognize that if I had a semi-decent following of the right people, then any business endeavor that I go on over the next few years will just be immeasurably easier. And so once I have that understanding, it becomes a no-brainer then to actually obviously just go in on content. And so we're experimenting with this now. YouTube videos, sure, I was trying to figure this all out. Complete newbie to it, as you can probably tell. But I'm very bullish on it. I think it's a very important avenue. And yeah, I'm going hard on it. So fingers crossed it pays off. 24, focus on the inputs, but measure the outputs. So we use a lot of scorecards in our businesses, and this tells us, on a weekly basis, the critical metrics that we need to know whether or not they're on target or off target. Because if they're on target, it's happy days. If they're off target, then we need to do something about it. And these scorecards are made up of two things, inputs and outputs. And you really want to build a business that focuses on the inputs, especially with your team. What I mean by this, the inputs are the things you can control. They're the number of ads that you're running, or the number of ad spend that week, or the number of comments written, or the number of emails sent out. They're the things that people on, you and your team can control. The outputs then are the things that happen as a result. So how many conversions did we get? How many sales did we make? How much revenue did we generate? How many leads signed up? These are all things that happen as a result of the inputs. Now, you need to measure those outputs because you need to make sure things are working to the right degree. But ultimately, you want to focus everyone around those inputs. And we have a lot of our targets are all based around the inputs because we want to be focused on the things that we can control. So especially across our team, we have very clear targets now for all of our team members with like just specific inputs that they need to hit, because we know if they're doing the inputs to the right quality, then all the outputs are going to follow. And that's kind of how we're running our business. It hasn't always been like that. It's taken us a very long time to get these targets nailed down, especially internally for our team. But now we've got them, the level of clarity it gives the team and the level of ownership and control it gives them, so far it's proven to be very promising. But again, early days for us on that one. Number 25, your business is exactly where it is today because of the choices you have made. Now, I read this somewhere the other day and it really hit hard for me. It's just a brutal reminder that when you do run a business, you are completely in control of your own destiny. And whilst that is truly amazing, it also means you've got no one to lean on, no one to rely on, and that ultimately everything that happens is your fault. Every success, every failure, all comes down to you. And so that is quite a liberating thing, but it's also the creator of a lot of stress, and it's a big burden. And internalizing that, for me anyway, yeah, it's good and bad. I love it because it's like I have full control over my destiny, but then on the flip side, you're just like, oh God, sometimes it's all on me. It's all my fault. It's all my problems. And it's true. And it's just so true. And you just got to get over it, get yourself back up on the horse and take charge, because that is the great honor and freedom that running a business has for you. Number 26. Strategically use forcing functions as much as possible. Nothing can turbocharge you and your team's productivity like a deadline. Now, this is so true. So forcing functions, some examples for me in my business might be if I'm speaking at an event and I've got to do a presentation, or if we've got a very important client review coming up, or if we have got just an important, internal quarterly planning meeting. Like, these are all fixed, what I call forcing functions, where this deadline's coming, where other people are involved, and so therefore all of this stuff has to be in place and ready for it. And when that happens, oh my days, I'm sure you felt it. Like the day before you go on holiday is a classic one where you just do about 10 days worth of work in a single day. And so, having learned this, I try and strategically implement these forcing functions throughout our weeks, because I know it's what mobilizes us to get loads of stuff done. And so we do this by adding in either internal meetings or meetings with clients where we know we need to present something or we know we need to show them something. As a result, it can just completely skyrocket your level of productivity more than any other productivity hack can. Because the truth is, when your back's against the wall, you got a bit of stress, that's when you really tap into your resourcefulness and you just make stuff happen. And so once you understand that, you can just leverage that. And that's certainly what I try and do. Number 27. Platforms and algorithms change frequently. Human psychology does not. If you understand the latter, you'll always be able to get customers. This is so true, and I've seen this time and time again, whether it's Facebook organic posts, back in the day used to work well, all of a sudden overnight boom, organic reach dropped by like 99%, whether it's SEO, people ranking really highly for SEO, ranking spot one for years, and all of a sudden boom, overnight, algorithm update, things have changed, everything gone. Now, whilst there always exist these little opportunities to massively arbitrage value from these channels. So currently Instagram Reels, for example, is popping off. TikTok Shop is popping up. Whilst it's good to jump on those, fundamentally, the thing that never changes is the human psyche, human psychology. And so having an understanding of human behavior, why people buy, why your customers buy, what makes them tick, that's really where to focus on. Because if you get that right, then it almost doesn't matter what channel you're on, you'll be able to have some degree of success. And importantly, if you get that right, it's going to give you complete resilience over the long term and enable you to be a sustainably successful marketer. Because all it is, the name of the game is understanding how someone ticks and understanding how you can help them. And so understanding the behaviors that go on in your customers' minds before they're ready to buy your thing, that is the ultimate ticket, and it's why we in our business, we spend a long time on that before we even start creating ads, because we recognize we've got to get that fundamental stuff right first before we then start testing it on different channels and all that kind of good stuff. So number 28, I think a very relevant one to end. Knowledge is only as useful as the degree to which you apply it. Knowledge is great. Applied knowledge is what makes a difference. It's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know. And this is so true. I see this a lot when you go to business events where You see people and they go to these business events, they might spend thousands on being there, and they get really hyped up and they make all these notes, but then the minute the event ends, they go back home, get into work the next day, and it's just straight back to doing all the old stuff that they have always done. And they don't actually take action on anything that they've learned, and it baffles the mind. Because again, you could know everything in the world that you need to do, but unless you just go and do it, you're not going to reap the benefits of it. And so actually being someone who ruthlessly applies things once they've learned them, that for me has been a big benefit to us. But I recognize that as a really valuable just life principle. Because fundamentally, like growing a business, yes, there's some really nuanced, specific challenges that come up. But ultimately, like, you broadly know what you need to do. Like, go out there and speak to more people and maybe speak to them in a better way. Maybe work on your offer a little bit. Like, it's not rocket science. And I think deep down, we all know what we need to do. It's just actually going and applying that knowledge and actually doing it, which ties into the very first point as well, having the confidence to act. So there we are. And so again, all of these lessons that I've written down here, some of these I act on all the time really well. Some of these I don't. And some of these are still lessons that I still am learning and trying to apply. But regardless, those are 28 lessons from my 28 spins around the earth. I hope they were somewhat useful. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to stop by and watch this. And if you've learned any lessons, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Otherwise, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe. Hopefully more videos coming soon. And God bless. Thank you so much.